I really got my hands around what food costs look like. What did labor cost? How do you create a profitable menu, right? Not just a menu that's beautiful or people are ordering a bunch. You can be doing everything right in the hospitality business. You're packed every night. People love you. The food's great. The service is great. And you can still go out of business. So I started to get really into P&L statements and this kind of math formula of how to make different concepts profitable and what makes things successful or not.
What's usually the biggest problem you see in these restaurants?
It really depends on the model. It's unfortunate, but most of the time the problem stems from ownership, either in a cultural issue.
Where do you see the industry going in, say, the next 3 years?
I talk about this a lot.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we can discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and in self. Today, we have Andrew Martino, the founder of Martino Hospitality Service and Ghost Truck Kitchens. Andrew is working directly with restaurants, bars, and nightclub owners to make their dream of running a successful hospitality business into a reality while developing his own concept around ghost kitchens. From developing accurate P&Ls to helping you develop a profitable and desirable menu, Andrew is working hands-on with business owners to take their business to the next level. Excited to talk with Andrew about his experience in the hospitality industry and what it really takes to be a successful restaurant, bar, or nightclub owner. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, man, you got me pumped up. Right before the call started, you're like, I'm also doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. You're a regular entrepreneur, absolutely crushing it. And you got an incredible background story of not just helping people, but also developing some new concepts and ideas within the restaurant space. So can you start us off? Give us a little background, where you come from, kind of where this interest really started and where you're at today.
Yeah. So I've always had a love for food. I think a lot of people get to tell these great stories about, oh, my grandmother was this incredible cook and I cooked next to. Mine is the exact opposite. No one in my family could cook at all. But I was watching food TV, like Wolfgang Puck, OG food TV. And I got really into cooking myself at a young age, fell in love with food business, fell in love with the restaurants. Ended up going to college in Central New York to business school where I thought I was going to major in marketing, ended up working at a bar, started running it by age 19, and just fell in love with the business and could never imagine myself doing anything else besides hospitality.
Oh, I love that. So you dove into it. I have a very similar background. My parents were restaurant owners and I fell in love with it as well, but kind of go from us from there. So you're 19 years old, you fall into the hospitality industry. You're absolutely in love. You're watching on TV, you're finding your own Kaizen throughout that process. How did it lead into you with the level of expertise you have today and kind of where you've developed since then?
Yeah, I think even myself at 19, 20, 21, I never thought of hospitality as something I could do for the rest of my life, right? It was something to make money. I could have a good time, be surrounded by friends, fun environments. But I started to go on what we call real life job interviews after college, where I put on my shirt and tie. And I was freaking miserable, absolutely miserable going to every interview. And just so happened to get a call from someone who knew me from running the bar in college and said, oh, hey, actually, we have this restaurant and nightclub and we're looking for a general manager. Would you be interested? I'm like, all right, sure. Like, I'll do this for a year, see what it's like, have some fun. And that 1 year turned into 6 years, turned into me moving across the country to test myself and challenge myself to see if I was as good as I thought I was, led to starting my own hospitality consultant business at age 29. Yeah.
29 years old in the hospitality industry is difficult. I know the feeling. It's anyone in the hospitality industry. You're listening to this right now. If you're a restaurant, bar, nightclub owner, you know how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur in that space. But for you to come in and you said challenge yourself. You want to dive into that a little bit? What do you mean by challenging yourself?
Yeah. So I was working at a nightclub on Long Beach Island. For those of you that know New Jersey, LBI, super small, barrier island. And it's not the hardest thing. So I was a big fish in a little pond. I thought I was really good, but I didn't actually know, right? It's not like this is Manhattan that we're talking about. So after Hurricane Sandy, where subsequently I lost all my shit, different story for a different time, I packed up what I had left in my car and I drove out to San Diego, huge hospitality scene out in San Diego. And I just wanted to see what I could do. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. But within a few months, I found myself running one of the biggest sports bars right outside of Petco Park in downtown San Diego. That's what kind of springboarded my next stage as a hospitality consultant. I learned a ton out there. I got to work with people who were super professional, took things really serious, and like it really leveled up my game as far as what I thought was possible in this industry.
Ballsy move, Andrew. I love hearing that. I lost everything and I packed it up and I moved because I had a passion, I had a drive, I had motivation to be in this hospitality industry. So talk a little bit of your transition out of the front end or back end of the house of the bar, right, to being that savant, as you would say, someone that would sit there and actually help out a mass level of hospitality industries and be recognized as a consultant.
Yeah. So I got to shout out the former owners that I worked for and got to experiment with their money and not my own. Certainly a lot of mistakes were made, but again, I kind of had freedom to reign, starting new concepts. So I started to work more with executive chefs in creating menus for new concepts. So I really got my hands around what food costs look like. What did labor cost? How do you create a profitable menu, right? Not just a menu like that's beautiful or people are ordering a bunch. And it was during that time I realized you can be doing everything right in the hospitality business. You're packed every night. People love you. The food's great. The service is great. And you can still go out of business if the model isn't sound, if your occupancy cost isn't right. So I started to get really into P&L statements and like this kind of math formula of how to make different concepts profitable and what makes things successful or not. And it's really eye-opening to get behind it from that direction and not just from a consumer perspective of, oh, that place is really busy, so the owner must be making tons of money. That's not always the case.
Truly went from an employee to an owner, right? If any of you guys have seen any of these podcasts before, you know that numbers is what make you a true entrepreneur and a true business owner. Knowing your numbers, knowing your business from the data points of it is really what supports you in your ability to grow, scale, and to stay alive, right? As you would say. And we've seen this multiple times where a restaurant will come in and they will be a packed house and they have great food. And next thing you know, a year later, they're out of business. And it's because of what Andrew brought up here, not understanding the base numbers from what's happening in your business. So Andrew, you go into this position, you move out to California, you get a challenge that you fully accept, and it helps you develop and find new opportunities, new understanding and new knowledge, diving into the data of the back end of the business. You start working through these menus and understanding how to make a profitable menu and how to make a profitable restaurant. Where does it go from there?
It goes wrong. So honestly, I had opened up a new concept for these guys I was working with. It was kind of a consultant role, but I was also their de facto director of operations. I was breaking my back for them. I was working like 16-hour days, 6-7 days a week, doing everything possible. We finally got one of the new spots open. I think this was the third or fourth place we had opened together. And it didn't open well, and it had a bad 2 months. And all that took was just to shake their confidence and be like, this isn't working. We need to go in a totally different direction. That doesn't work in hospitality. You need to have some conviction in what you're doing. They decided to pivot away. I took an opportunity to actually move back to New York City. 2 months later, I get a call from them begging me to come back. Everything's falling apart. It's gotten so much worse. And at that point, I had met my now wife and mother of my 2 children. So I did not move back. And that started my transition back to the East Coast. So it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes things happen for a reason. And I think me losing that opportunity quickly certainly made me realize that if I was going to work so hard for somebody else, I am much better off working that hard for myself.
What a golden nugget there, though. The conviction and the consistency needed in the hospitality industry. You're 100% correct. And I couldn't tell you how many people I've seen in restaurants, especially coming to us as marketing and asking us for marketing advice of, hey, I want to pivot this whole thing, or I want to reach customers that have never been in my business before. All of these changes are from emotional feelings instead of data and real numbers. And that causes, I always like to bring up Bud Light. Bud Light made an emotional decision last year that tanked everything in their business, right? And they're still trying to build back from it because they didn't understand their business. They didn't understand their customers. And that's what you're alluding to here with the business that you had in California. Now you move into New York. You have a clear understanding of actually what's going on in businesses. You understand how to find profitability in the menus. You understand how to open up new locations, and you've developed this wealth of knowledge from being out in California. And now you're set in New York. You find the love of your life and you're getting in a position where you're starting a family. How does your structure and your business, you as an individual, how do you change at that moment? How did you pivot into being a consultant?
So through some prior contacts that I had in the business, this was at the time of the fast casual boom, right? Everybody was trying to be the next Chipotle, the next X of fast casual. So I was approached by someone who I'd known previously through some of my work in Southern California, and they wanted to invest in a new brand and concept. So they had 10 different concepts picked out that all had multiple locations in and around New York City. I spent months researching, vetting those locations, visiting them all to make a final recommendation of which business these people should invest multiple millions of dollars into. When all was said and done, my recommendation said none. I said that none of these businesses were worthy of a recommendation, and these guys were shocked. What do you mean? How is that possible? Mind you, 9 of these 10 businesses are no longer in business right now. The only one I missed on was Pliables. I'm sorry, I thought your labor cost was too high, but you have a beautiful business. And so they said, well, what would you do? And so I started to kind of reverse engineer what I thought would be a successful concept. People are spending more on rent. The content's better at home. People only can get really shitty Chinese and pizza generally at home for delivery. How can I up that game? And that's when I started to create the concept that people know today as Ghost Truck Kitchen, or GTK, where people can get a variety of different concepts, all optimized for delivery, all in one order at one time. Everything from burritos and empanadas to fried rice bowls, smoked and grilled wings. Like, we do everything but sushi and pizza. And that was kind of the inspiration for me to jump out and do my own thing, at the same time still help other small businesses that want to get up.
So today, you are not only still being a consultant and helping businesses, structuring their P&Ls, understanding their labor costs, building them a menu, and helping them build their dream of the hospitality industry, but you're also running one today. Can you dive in a little bit into this Ghost Truck Kitchen? I mean, you explained it on the top level surface, but this was COVID year when you started this. When exactly did it start?
Yeah, so this started actually about 2 years before COVID. I came up with the concept. We ended up opening about 14 months before COVID. I found a basement location. I raised money on Kickstarter. I threw in the money that I had. I did some friends and family money. I just had this idea I couldn't get out of my head, and I wanted to see if it could work. The risk was really low. The rent was low, and things were going fine. We had no marketing budget, but things were going fine. Boom, COVID hits. All of a sudden, I look like the smartest guy in the room, and everyone's telling me, oh my God, this is great. But for me, I'm shitting my pants, because I was one of like 6 people on the entire planet that cared about takeout and delivery food at this point, right? It was an afterthought. And I was like, oh, this is my niche. I'm going to crush this. All of a sudden, every single operator in the world, from like the biggest global companies to the smallest guy, everybody was into takeout and delivery. So I was nervous that we were just going to get our dinner eaten. But thankfully, our model prevailed, our food prevailed. We were able to attract an investor. We were able to grow the brand. And we're one of the few remaining ghost kitchen adjacent concepts from that time that's still operating today. We didn't raise $200 million or $400 million and throw it all down the drain. So we were really smart. We had a long-term vision. We're still executing that vision to today. And it's been really great to see the evolution of, COVID, out of COVID, what does takeout and delivery look like, the rise of software technology in restaurants. So there's been so much happening around that space. And it's great to be at the forefront of that, next generation.
Beautiful timeline to the story, right? Starting off with just a love and passion for it, getting your hands wet in the actual process, working as a manager, then uprooting your entire life to go to California to learn more and to understand the data behind restaurants, and then taking the leap of faith of just saying, I'm going to do this by myself. I'll put all my money into this. This is the right concept. And then for the universe to come back and award you with COVID, which was a burner for a lot of different restaurants, and for you, it excelled the business. Now today, Ghost Truck Kitchen, is it just located in New York? Where are you guys located?
So we have a location in Hoboken that we've grown into. That one's been open for about a year and change. We closed our original basement location where everything was started, and we're about to open a brand new, beautiful 3,000 square foot facility that's the next evolution of what I think which is a more omni-channel restaurant experience, where we have a takeout delivery specific menu that goes out the door. We have a sit down dining menu that's perfect for groups and guests and events. And it's really a beautiful blend, I think, of technology, old school analog service, and what you'd expect. And I'm hopeful that it'll be proven out in our P&L, and it's something that we can grow and expand and show people that you don't have to either be takeout and delivery only or sit down only. These things can work together as long as you're intentional about everything that you do.
Really on the cutting edge. And I have to quote Russell Brunson here. If you guys, listeners out there, you don't know who Russell Brunson is and you care about marketing, make sure you dive into .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. But one of the biggest things that he says in that book that has resonated with me for over the last decade was, you don't force the customer to be where you are. You meet the customer where they are, and that will make them comfortable and want to move forward with your business. And you are doing that with Ghost Truck Kitchen. That means really emphasizing not only what you've learned in the hospitality industry, but also how these consumers live, right? How these consumers really want to absorb this food. You're 100% right. If you look back 5 to 7 years ago, every delivery order, if it wasn't a pizza, was lackluster, right? You really just couldn't get the experience of the food. And you guys have developed something that allows you to give high quality experience either in-house soon. I apologize. Soon you'll have something that will be in-house as well as in your home and allowed to give high quality food across the board. I really want to dive into kind of the issues and the problems that you see in the hospitality industry. You brought a lot of them up so far of not understanding your P&Ls, not understanding food costs, not building a menu for profitability. But when you're looking at, when you walk into, say, a new restaurant, let's go back and put the consulting hat back on. When you walk into a new restaurant, do you see consistency from restaurant to another that is, say, failing or underperforming? That is the first thing that you go to fix? Is it usually the P&Ls, or what's usually the biggest problem you see in these restaurants?
It really depends on the model. It's unfortunate, but most of the time the problem stems from ownership, either in a cultural issue, right? They don't lead their leaders well. So in turn, their leaders don't lead the employees well, which causes a lot of turnover, which causes inconsistent service and inconsistent food. And that's like a really hard spiral to get out of. The second is, and this is something I noticed when you first walk in, what people are spending their money on to open a restaurant has really shifted, where the vibe has been the most important thing. And you see people spending multiple millions of dollars on furniture, lighting, and all this. But then you ask a server a question about the menu and they have no idea what the answer is, right? So vibe works. Instagram photos are nice, but they don't necessarily last as long, right? They're not sustainable. So I would love to see a return to consistency in food and service, and not so much as a focus on the atmosphere and vibe. Again, people will come back and return if the food is good and the service is good. No one goes to a place and is like, well, it was really pretty, so I'm going to come back even though the food sucked and the service sucked. So that's something that I notice frequently as a guest. Again, consultant wise, really feel like the culture from the ownership down is the most important thing, and also the hardest thing to cure.
Incredible, nail on head topic, right? If you guys have seen our last podcast, we just dove into the culture and developing the culture of restaurants. But at the end of the day, I'm assuming you're a foodie.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, right? In the hospitality industry, you got to be. I'm in the same boat. We remember the good ambiance if the food was good. We remember the good customer service if the food was good, right? A lot of restaurant owners forget you're serving food. That's your number one goal. People are hungry. You got to make them not hungry. That's number one. Everything after that, the customer service, the ambiance, and I really think ambiance is on one of the lower scales, right? Ambiance really, you only separate yourself with ambiance if you're looking at average ticket items that are, if we're going for a $40 plate compared to a $40 plate, and the food's consistent, customer service is consistent, then the ambiance might have some effect to the actual growth. But customer acquisition in the hospitality industry is massively high. It is, compared to your average ticket order, you're almost, if you're spending on marketing and advertising, you're almost consistently losing money to acquire a new customer. So if you do not bring them back for a second, third, and fourth visit, you are going to burn your business into the ground. I bet you've seen this a million times, Andrew, right? And that really comes back to, are you delivering a good overall service? I love that you hit that nail on the head and really brought in the culture, because the culture is such a huge factor for the consistency of the business. When you look at you as a consultant, right, when you're working with these restaurants, what kind of restaurants are you working with? Are you looking to help a lot of the mom and pop small shops? Are you working with Chipotle and the major franchise chains? What is the ideal restaurant, bar, or nightclub that you could step into and today that you can help them?
Yeah. So when I first got started, I had a mentor actually out in San Diego, and most of the work that I did was with large restaurant groups, large hotel groups. We were essentially doing like extremely high-end mystery shops, integrity shops, really learning the ins and outs of like major businesses. Not so fulfilling. And also you really can't impart that much change, right? There's only so much a large hotel group is going to take from what you're saying and implement it across a property, across several properties. So I really started getting passionate about working directly with owner operators, right? People who had never maybe opened or started a business before. They've only worked at a restaurant, or they have this passion to open a restaurant. And that's what I focus on now is nonprofit organization opportunities, and really, mom and pops, people that have been cooks their whole life that want to open their own place. This isn't something I'm doing. I don't charge, $30,000 a month for. I really want to give someone an experience to not make these simple mistakes. And more often or not, this is not good for my business. I talk people out of it, right? There's plenty of people that I talk to and I'm just like, hey, if you have this money to invest, there's way better places for you to invest it than in a restaurant business or to start a restaurant business, because I can tell they don't have the commitment to what it takes. The model isn't right. Maybe the food's not good enough. So like, I don't want to see those people put all of their life savings into something that I know has a very, very high chance of failure. So I try to have those hard conversations with people. Usually they're really receptive. Most of the time they listen, and that makes me feel good too, right? They can pivot and find a different business to invest in or something else to start.
It is by far, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to really run a restaurant. They say 89% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. I think restaurants are a huge part of that statistics across the board, right? And there is so many factors that come into play. And it's not just what everyone's dealing with every single day of the bad employees or hard to find customers. You're looking at waste costs. You're looking at increasing and decreasing of prices at random, depending on the products and depending on the time of year, right? So there's so many volatile positionings when it comes to being a hospitality business owner that make it very, very difficult. And it's awesome to hear that. It means you really do care. You care about the person you're talking to. You're caring about successful restaurants. You're caring about good restaurants being in the industry and good owners taking care of those restaurants, because as you said before, there's not a good owner developing the right culture, it's going to fail either way. So you alluded a little bit before about the new technology and the new development within the restaurant industry. I got to ask you, you're obviously well ingrained into this category. You're working with these every single day. Plus you're running your own ghost kitchen, right? Where do you see the industry going and say the next 3 years?
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. I'm not in the robotics camp. I don't think robotics are going to be deployed in restaurants anytime soon in any effective manner. I think robotics can be deployed in industrial settings, huge college campuses, where you're prisons, where you're feeding thousands of people at a time and stuff like that. I am all in on AI and agents, using them to train for efficiency, using them to monitor food waste, for purchasing, all sorts of procurement, communication, scheduling optimization. I think that getting a handle on AI for restaurateurs is an incredibly valuable tool, not because it's going to make you a bunch of money, but because it's going to save you a bunch of time.
AI camera. I love that. Really breaking down and bringing in some factors that I don't think everyone knows about. If you're in the hospitality industry in any space, and you heard what Andrew just said here of leveraging AI for food costs, for scheduling, for information, for developing agents internal to your business that support you and be able to move not just more free, but more consistent. Because let's be honest, a robot's going to do the same thing every single time. If you train an AI correctly, it does the same thing almost every single time. If you guys are hearing that and your ears are peaking up, make sure you connect with Andrew. All his information will be below in the description. I got a few more questions for you before we get to the end here, because you've really got me excited. Coming from the restaurant industry, working with hundreds of restaurants over the last few years, I have a personal care and a personal passion about growing these restaurants. So I got to ask you, Andrew, when you walk into the business and say you've structured the P&Ls correctly, you got the menu to be profitable, the internal culture has been developed in a way where you know there's going to be consistency across the board. What is your first effort to grow a restaurant? If they need new customer acquisition, they need increase in revenue, what is usually your first step to ensure that you have new customers coming through the front door for these clients?
Well, first, I want to make sure that our staffing is correct, that when we do get the new customers, we're able to keep the new customers. I think a mistake that I see often is a marketing initiative or campaign will go out and it goes incredibly well, but you're not able to handle the increase in volume. And instead of actually acquiring new guests, you end up shooting yourself in the foot. And now you've wasted all of that time and all of that money. So I think the basis step is like, all right, how much more volume can we do with the labor that we have? And you need to feel comfortable that you're able to take on the new growth that you have. Okay, so let's say that's in place now. We feel comfortable that we can take a 25% increase in tickets or whatever the case may be. I'm old school, okay? So if I'm an independent restaurant, I'm not going digital right off the bat. I'm going analog. I'm meeting other business owners. I have a card in my pocket that has a promo code on it, potentially for people to order. I'm looking to sponsor a charity event. I'm looking to get my food into people's hands as quickly as possible. And that's what I'm starting, because it's cheaper. So I'm not taking and saying, oh, I need $5,000 to go run ads. No, you need a decent looking promo card and to be able to go out, shake some hands and get involved in the community around you. I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. Stage 2 would be that digital piece, right? It would be, okay, I want to invest in ads, right? Is it Google search ads? Is it meta ads? It really depends on what your style of business is. If you're a delivery business, yeah, I'm going to pump digital as much as I can. Maybe if I'm a sit down restaurant, I want to do some more engagement on boosting posts for Instagram, letting people see the vibe, user generated content, people having fun with their butts in the seats. So the strategy is really dependent on what type of customer you're doing, what type of concept you have. But again, the analog stuff, any owner right now can do this today. They can go to freaking Staples, print out some decent looking promotional cards and go out to businesses and hand them out and bring some food with them and donate food to an event. Like, you can do that tomorrow.
I love getting the food in the hands of the potential customers. By far, I think that's one thing that a lot of restaurant owners just flake on, right? Because they're like, oh, it's a heavy cost, or it's the sweat equity they have to put in. Who knows what the reason is? But at the end of the day, you're cooking food to, again, solve that initial problem. People are hungry. You want to solve that issue. And you're not going to be able to do that without getting your food into the hands of the people. So listen, as a digital guy, right? All I do is the digital space, and I know the success that it's there. But I tell every one of the restaurant owners, when's your next event? When are you connecting with people in person? What are you doing on a one-to-one basis to ensure that, one, you get content for the digital space, but two, the food is getting in the hands of the customers. You got to get the food in the hands of the customers. Andrew, you're extremely intelligent. You have your stuff together. You've brought up a few stories now of kind of some trials and tribulations you've gone through personally to really make you the man you are today, which is ecstatic to hear, and thank you for sharing it. Do you have a story that maybe a restaurant owner or a bar or a nightclub owner, if they're listening to this right now, do you have a story of working with one of these clients where maybe something went wrong? Maybe it was a difficult time. Maybe it was a failure, you might say, but something that you learned from that helps you execute for every business going forward. Do you have any stories that someone listening right now could retain and kind of really develop from?
Two things come to mind, and they were similar circumstances with similar clients. They were both very, very passionate and hardworking. The dedication was never in question. The effort from them was never in question. Sometimes concepts just don't work. And when they don't work, I know we talked about conviction before, you need to know when to hang it up also. So against advice, I had a client that, ended up taking a second mortgage on a home to keep a failing business running and put themselves in a very bad situation. So, again, I mentioned, I think at the beginning of this, you can do everything right and go out of business. You can do everything right and the model doesn't work. The concept doesn't work. It doesn't resonate with the guests. And at that point, whether it's 9 months, a year, you do need to be able to pull the plug, even though it's your baby and there's an opportunity cost there, you got to walk away. So don't be too proud to walk away and recoup and learn yourself and take another shot down the road or with another concept. But certainly, don't continue to feed money into something that's clearly not working after a long period of time.
I've seen the same with some of the clients that we've had. We worked really, really hard to fix that problem. I labeled it as wrong location for wrong concept. Would you agree that's usually the main problem when you see an actual failing concept, or is there something more?
One was a wrong location. The concept was awesome. I still think about the food. It was delicious. Like, the price points were good. This was probably 4 years ago now. If it opened up in the same neighborhood now, it might actually work. They just weren't ready for it. Another is just a concept I don't believe in, which is profitability wise, it's cold press juicing, which it's so hard to make money in a single location with that because of the cost of products and the cost of labor and everything, that no matter where it was, unless they had free rent or own the building, it was going to be impossible to make the numbers work.
So yeah, a combination of not having the P&L structured correctly, labor costs and cost of goods, and then location. Because that's, I've seen areas like, I've seen business like Poke Bowls open up in in the middle of a small town in Texas, and they just don't perform. Food could be amazing. Their P&Ls could be accurate. Their labor costs are good, but it just doesn't resonate. And then we put out an ad of do you know what's in a Poke Bowl? And it blows up because we didn't realize that the local consumer base wasn't even educated on the food that they were serving. And it seems to be a heavy problem. And if you're a restaurant or a bar owner and you're in that position right now where you have to tell all of your customers what's in your food or what kind of food you have, it means your consumer base isn't educated, which means if you are going to continue with that business, you have to pay to educate the consumers and then pay to acquire the consumers. You just got to be ready for a heavy cost. It could have huge upsides on the back end, but in the start of it all, You got to educate the consumers. The market's got to be ready for you. Would you agree with that?
100%, 100%, a million percent. We had to do the same thing, right? When we first opened, people were like, what the heck is this place? Ghost kitchen wasn't a term. I was calling us a virtual restaurant. People thought you had to put on VR goggles to come join. So like there was a heavy learning curve of like what we were doing. Is it a food truck? Are there 12 different people inside cooking different food? So yes, if you're doing something new, really simplifying it for people and explaining it over and over and over again. We still do that now. We go back to our core messaging from 5 years ago and say like, this is what we're doing. This is why we do it. This is the value proposition for it. Just like breaking it down as simple as possible.
Through top of funnel advertising to inform and educate consumers. I love that, Andrew. I mean, not only are you an amazing hospitality business owner and a consultant, but you also seem to be a damn good marketer and entrepreneur, right? You seem to really be on top of this stuff, which I love hearing. It's a great conversation, but I want to kind of wrap this all up with how are you developing, right? You've gone through a lot of this conversation now of your personal development, the business development that you've had. Today, Andrew, when you're going throughout your day, how do you find your Kaizen? And for the listeners out there, Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means 1% improvement every single day in both business and itself. We all find it different ways. If it's from podcasts, YouTube, 6-mile runs in the morning with ice baths, whatever it might be, we all find our own way to improve ourselves every day. So Andrew, how are you staying on top of the ball? How do you continuously improve your craft, your business, and you personally?
Yeah, I think it starts with curiosity, right? You got to continuously want to learn. For a long time, the answer was Google alerts, right? Setting Google alerts for very specific topics that I was interested in and getting results from all over the world and seeing how people were attacking similar problems in, different dense areas, different markets. So Google alerts were a super helpful thing. And now, to be honest, LinkedIn has become a huge source of information, right? There's brilliant people on there who want to have a big LinkedIn following and they're giving great advice frequently. So searching out people in your industry who have different and assorted experience and reading what they have to say is really important. So just continuing to learn, continuing to be curious and realize that everything is changing all the time. And if you stop for a week, someone else is surpassing you. So you got to keep at it.
I freaking love it. I absolutely love it. And yeah, LinkedIn definitely has gotten a lot better as of recent with a lot of good information across the board. But I think what you said in the very beginning hits the nail on the head. You got to be humble and you got to be willing to learn. You got to be curious. You got to want to find that new knowledge. There's too many restaurant owners out there that have been doing it the same way for decades and they've found success, but it's just one good competitor to walk into your space with the bells and whistles that you don't have that can pull that market share from you and put you in a bad spot. So Andrew, this has been not only extremely informative, but an awesome conversation across the board. Really do appreciate talking to you. If there is somebody looking for help with their hospitality business and they're looking to either fix their bar, restaurant, or nightclub, how would they connect with you? And also give us an outlet of how people in your area can try Ghost Truck Kitchen.
Yeah. So first we'll do with the food. So hellogtk.com. If you're in our delivery radius, we got you covered for all the great eats you could possibly want. And for me personally, you can reach out on Instagram at The Hospitality Analyst or via email, cheers@martinohospitality.com.
I love it. All that information is going to be found below in the description. Andrew, thank you so much for staying with us through this. If you guys have watched this whole video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Kaizen podcast.